Imagine you have a magic printing press. You print 1 billion pieces of purple paper and tell the world they are worth $1 each. Then you take those purple papers to a bank, show them your $1 billion stack, and ask for a real loan of $500 million in cold, hard cash. The bank says yes. You take that real cash, buy a private jet, a luxury penthouse in Bahamas, and pay celebrities millions to tell everyone that your purple paper is the future of finance. This sounds like a cartoon villain's plan, right? But in the world of high finance and cryptocurrency, this wasn't just a plan. It was a foundation of a $32 billion empire called FTX. And the man behind the curtain was a messy-haired, 29-year-old vegan who played League of Legends during high-stakes board meetings. His name is Sam Bankman-Fried, or SBF. To the world, SBF was the white knight of crypto. While other founders were buying Lamborghinis and posting pictures of their watches, Sam was sleeping on a beanbag chair in his office. He drove a Toyota Corolla. He talked about effective altruism and the idea of making as much money as possible just so he could give it all away to save the world. He wasn't just a businessman. He was a genius who had finally solved the chaos of the crypto market. He built FTX, an exchange that promised to be the safest, most regulated, and most professional place for you to trade your digital assets. If Coinbase was a boring bank and Binance was a Wild West, FTX was the gold standard. But behind the beanbag chairs and the charity donations, there was a hole so large that it didn't just swallow Sam's fortune, it swallowed $8 billion of customer money belonging to teachers, engineers, and everyday people who just wanted a safe place to invest. How did a genius lose $32 billion in just 72 hours? To understand the collapse, we first have to understand the norm. How was FTX supposed to work? In the simplest terms, an exchange like FTX is just a giant, high-tech locker room. When you go to the gym, you put your bag in a locker and lock the door. You expect that when you come back, your bag is still there. The gym doesn't own your bag. They aren't allowed to take your sneakers and lend them to someone else. They just provide the locker. FTX was supposed to be that locker room for your money. You deposit your US dollars or your Bitcoin, and FTX holds it for you. If you want to trade your Bitcoin for Ethereum, FTX finds someone else on the platform who wants to do the opposite, matches you up, and takes a tiny fee for the service. That's it. That is how a healthy exchange makes money. They are the middleman. They are the referee. They are never, ever supposed to be the player. But Sam Bankman-Fried had another company, a secret company called Alameda Research. Alameda was an exchange. It was a hedge fund. It was a gambler. And while FTX was a safe locker room, Alameda was a person outside, betting millions on horse races and high-stakes poker games. Normally, these two businesses should be separated by a massive, unbreakable wall. The referee shouldn't be friends with the gambler. But in Sam's world, the wall didn't exist. In fact, there was a secret backdoor in the code of FTX, a backdoor that allowed Alameda to reach into those lockers, take the customer's money, and go gamble with it. And for a long time, nobody noticed. Why? Because they had created the purple paper we talked about earlier. They called it FTT. To understand how this worked, imagine Sam is running a world-class casino. You walk in, give him $1,000 in real cash, and he give you 1,000 digital chips. He tells you, your cash is safe in my vault. Whenever you want to leave, just give me the chips back, and he'll give you your cash. But Sam also has a friend named Alameda. Alameda is a professional gambler who lives in the basement of the casino. One day, Alameda loses all their money. Instead of letting them go bust, Sam does something unthinkable. He reaches into the casino's vault that holds your $1,000 and hands it to Alameda so they can keep gambling. But wait, if a government inspector walks in and asks to see the vault, Sam has a problem. The cash is gone. So Sam gets creative. He takes a piece of napkin, writes $1 billion on it with a crayon, and puts it in the vault. He calls this napkin FTT. In the real world, FTT was FTX's own cryptocurrency token. Normally, A token's value comes from people wanting to use the platform. But Sam realized a brilliant loophole. Since he controlled FTX, he could control how much FTT was worth. He didn't sell most of the FTT to the public. He kept the vast majority of it for himself and Alameda. By keeping the supply tiny on the open market, he only needed a few people to buy FTT at a high price to make it look like the billions of FTT he held in his basement were incredibly valuable. It was a giant circular lie. FTX created FTT out of thin air. They gave a high market price. Then, Alameda used that valuable FTT as collateral to borrow real customer deposits from FTX. This was the escalation. It wasn't just a few $1,000s anymore. We are talking about billions. With this borrowed customer money, the empire started growing at a terrifying speed. Sam wasn't just a crypto guy. He was everywhere. He bought the naming rights to the Miami Heat's arena, now the FTX Arena. He ran a star-studded Super Bowl ad featuring Larry David. He flew to Washington, D.C., and testified before Congress, telling politicians that he was the one person who could make crypto safe for everyone. He was using your money to buy the fame that made you trust him with even more of your money. It was a feedback loop of pure greed. But here's the mathematical problem. A napkin with $1 billion written on it is only worth something as long as everyone believes the guy who wrote it is a genius. If people start doubting the napkin, the value drops to zero. And unlike real money, FTT wasn't something Alameda could use to pay back customers if they all showed up at once asking for their cash. Alameda had invested that money in startup companies, expensive mansions, and political donations. The money was gone. It was illiquid. It was locked away in things that couldn't be sold quickly. The empire was now a $32 billion house of cards. It looked magnificent from the outside, but it was hollow. All it needed was one person to walk by and blow a tiny puff of air at the base. And that person was about to arrive. His name was Changpeng Zhao, the CEO of Binance Sam's biggest rival. And he was holding a very large fan. It all started with a leak. A balance sheet from Alameda Research found its way to a news outlet called CoinDesk, and what it revealed was a ticking time bomb. It showed that Alameda multi-billion-dollar hedge fund didn't actually have much real cash. Most of its wealth was just billions of dollars in FTT, the purple paper printed by its sister company, FTX. This was like discovering that a massive bank's only assets were thousands of shares in its own bank. It was circular. It was fragile. And when Changpeng Zhao, the CEO of Binance, saw this, he didn't stay quiet. He tweeted that Binance would sell its entire holding of FTT $1 billion worth. In the world of finance, that tweet was a gunshot. It triggered a bank run. Imagine you're at that casino we talked about. Suddenly, someone screams that the vault is empty. What do? You run to the cashier to get your $1,000 back. But you aren't alone. Everyone is running. In just 72 hours, customers tried to withdraw $6 billion from FTX. But remember the basement. Remember Alameda. The real cash was already gone. It had been spent on luxury penthouses, political influence, and bad bets on other failing crypto companies. Sam Bankman-Fried tried to stay calm. He tweeted, FTX is fine. Assets are fine. But he was lying. Behind the scenes, he was desperately calling every billionaire in Silicon Valley, begging for a bailout. Everyone said no. Even CZ, who briefly offered to buy FTX, walked away after looking at the books. He realized the hole wasn't a small crack, it was an abyss. On November 11th, 2022, the white knight of crypto surrendered. FTX filed for bankruptcy. Sam resigned. The man who was worth $26 billion on Monday was worth almost zero by Friday. When the news to a man who cleaned up the Enron mess took over, he said he had never seen such a complete failure of corporate controls. There wasn't even a list of employees. They used emojis on Slack to approve multi-million-dollar expenses. It wasn't a sophisticated financial operation. It was a frat house running a global bank. So, who paid the price? It wasn't just the venture capitalists. It was the retail investors. The people who put their life savings into FTX because they believed in the beanbag chair and the effective altruism promise. They were left with nothing but digital IOUs. The lesson of FTX isn't just about crypto. It's about the oldest story in finance, human greed. When someone offers you guaranteed high returns with no risk, they aren't a genius. They are just using a more complicated magic trick. History is a circle. From the South Sea bubble to Enron and now to FTX, the names change, but the mechanics remain the same. The loophole always looks like a revolution until the music stops. And as long as we keep looking for white knights to save us, there will always be someone ready to print some purple paper and sell us a dream. Stay skeptical. Understand the plumbing of where you put your money. Because in the end, if you don't know how the yield is being made, you are the yield.